And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very special broadcast today on the 29th day of September. Yes, a few days left to go and September's gone. We're looking out the window, a cloudy day today and 19 degrees. Well, of course, what's in the air? What's in the air is the doubt. The doubtfulness is what's going to happen, where would we end up with the restrictions and what is taking place. Well, as if you know, they had to be a little bit cautious of that new case, and 4 new cases that have come on. The 3 we know about, the 4th one is a little bit dubious. We'll find out about all one, but of course, as we know, that the situation is being monitored, and we'll find out what else is happening with that. Right now, let's hear from our Premier about the current update.
Queensland is on high alert with new locally acquired coronavirus cases identified in Brisbane. 4 instances have been detected, including an unvaccinated truck driver who was infectious in the community for 8 days. And as a result, masks are again mandatory indoors in Brisbane and the Moreton Bay region. Visitor restrictions will also be reintroduced at hospitals and aged care homes. Victoria has recorded more daily cases than New South Wales for the first time in its outbreak, with 867 local infections. The state also recorded 4 more deaths. And case numbers from the past 2 days have been revised after test results were incorrectly recorded due to a third-party software error. New South Wales has 863 new locally acquired cases and 7 more people have died. Authorities have also confirmed both the Tweed and Byron Shires in the state's north will come out of lockdown at midnight. Now, for more on the situation in Queensland, here's reporter Michael Rennie in Brisbane.
Well, the lockdown is always being considered in this sort of situation. That's what Jeanette Young, the Chief Health Officer in Queensland, said earlier on today. But at this stage, it's not needed, but the next 48 hours will be crucial. So what we know about these cases at the moment is that there has been 4 community cases today, 3 though of real concern. And the first one is the first one we learned about earlier this morning, or as of last night, was a man from Eaton's Hill. He is in his 30s, so he's from Brisbane's north side. He works in an aviation training centre, and it's at that aviation training centre that's where he's believed he's come into contact with someone potentially with COVID. So he has also infected his wife and has been in the community for 3 days at various exposure sites which are listed on the Queensland Health website. Eaton's Hill, also at Albany Creek and Aspley on Brisbane's north side, and Rockley on Brisbane's south side. But the case they are really concerned about is that of a truck driver who has been in the community for 8 days. He has been in New South Wales at some stage. We just don't know the exact date at this point. But he has stayed at hotels in Spring Hill, 2 hotels in Spring Hill, and also at a boarding house located in South Brisbane. So this man was unvaccinated. The man who worked at the aviation centre was fully vaccinated. This truck driver was unvaccinated. So that sees us, as you said in the intro, that we're going back to a rule around masks. We need to wear masks while we're indoors, and that's when you say go into a stadium and you sit down at that stadium. In the stadium, you need to have your mask on at all times, unless you're eating or drinking. And it's the same, similar situation with pubs, clubs and cafes. You need to be wearing that mask while you're indoors at the moment. But with this truck driver, that ties into some changes that they're also making around truck drivers coming in to the state of Queensland. From October 15th, it will be mandatory for truck drivers to have had at least 1 dose of the vaccine if they're coming across the border, and by November the 15th they will need to have been double dosed. So that sees extra vaccine hubs that will be coming online, one from today in Tugam, which is right on the Queensland-New South Wales border. Another one further west at Gundawindi, that will be coming online later this week. That's at the Gundawindi Showgrounds. They're going to set up a pop-up clinic for truck drivers there. Those truck drivers are also going to have to show evidence that they have had a negative COVID test in the last 7 days as they cross the border. So some big changes. With the NRL Grand Final, at this point, it is going ahead on Sunday, but the Chief Health Officer, Jeanette Young, she indicated that we could be waiting up until game day to make a call on that. So she could call off that match as far as that. So it shows that they're going to really just wait and see what happens with the situation right up until Sunday. No lockdown at this stage, although the Chief Health Officer did say the next 48 hours is crucial.
I always consider a lockdown, and then I work through what we need to do. At this stage, I do not think a lockdown is warranted. That could change, but I'm really very comforted by the fact that people do know how to respond and respond very, very quickly. We've seen that for the last few outbreaks.
And Michael, authorities are also investigating the death of a man in hotel quarantine.
Yes, that's right. Police have announced that a man in his 50s has died in hotel quarantine. He is an Australian citizen, but at this stage, Gemma, there's no further details.
No further details on that death, and all this is a little bit too close for comfort, but we will see. And as with the NRL, the Chief Health Officer could pull the plug even up till the last minute. And welcome to the show, Soni Saab. You know, he's listening daily. Of course, he's had both the Pfizer 1 and 2. Thank you so much for doing that, showing that responsibility as a responsible citizen. So very good. And Chandradashi, welcome to the show as well. And we have Devika. Thanks for your support always. Well, right now, let's hear from our Chief Medical Officer herself.
I do have a reasonable level of concern. I'm also comforted by the fact that Queenslanders have done such a good job each time we've had an outbreak. I think everyone is very comfortable with masks and we know they protect. And I'm also comfortable with the amount of testing that's happening. And I know now that we've had this announcement that the amount of testing will significantly increase. So as long as we all do that we wear masks, that we maintain social distancing and we get tested, then of course we've got the added benefit. Every single day we are seeing the numbers of people who are vaccinated going up. So all of those things mean that we can try and manage an outbreak like these two new ones in a different way. But we'll be keeping a very, very close eye on what happens over the next 24, 48 hours to see if we need additional restrictions. As always, we are putting in place systems to protect the most vulnerable, so that's those people in aged care, disability care, in our hospitals and in our prisons. So we've already got that in place, plus we've ramped up the use of PPE in our hospitals and facilities in both that Brisbane LGA and the Moreton Bay LGA. But we'll just have to see what happens over the next 48 hours. Of course, I always consider a lockdown, and then I work through what we need to do. At this stage, I do not think a lockdown is warranted. That could change, but I'm really very comforted by the fact that people do know how to respond and respond very, very quickly. We've seen that for the last few outbreaks.
And as it stands, no lockdown as yet, and as our Chief Medical Officer has said, that could change. We'll keep an eye, and as soon as any new report comes in, we will go, and if we have to go live once again, we will do that. Right now, staying still in Brisbane, another news is about mums and about breastfeeding and some of the new facilities that are being opened right here in Brisbane.
A precious moment between mother and daughter savoured after a difficult beginning.
I had preeclampsia with HELLP syndrome, which was kind of scary, and I had an emergency Caesar, and that's how we got her so early.
Born premature at 29 weeks, weighing just 781 grams, baby Lydia has spent 9 weeks in intensive care. Her mum Rhiannon initially struggled to breastfeed, relying on donated breast milk to help her baby through.
Someone else's generosity to do that has given me a wonderful gift.
Donated breast milk is provided to about 1,000 premature babies born before 32 weeks in Queensland each year. For mums who can't produce their own breast milk, donated milk is a valuable supplement.
It helps prevent some of the health challenges that small babies can face, particularly things like problems with their gut, and food intolerance.
The new Brisbane Milk Bank will provide more than 1,500 litres of breast milk to babies in 6 neonatal intensive care units and 13 special care unit nurseries across the state. About 360 donors are needed to meet annual demand.
The mums need to be within the Brisbane area and they need to have milk that's surplus to their needs.
Potential donors are screened and the milk is pasteurised. Erin Davison became a donor when her premature son didn't require all the milk she was producing.
Yeah, there were days in the NICU where we'd see the donation team come and deliver donor milk, and it was nice to think that, you know, that could be my little bit of liquid gold that's going on to someone else.
No, I'm very grateful that she got what she needed when she needed it.
Ashley Stevens.
And isn't that wonderful? You know, it is like a donation of life, and, you know, it fills your heart to see such generosity. Well, right now, moving on, we'll look at the cases by case. And right now, let's go to Latrobe and see how many cases. Well, I think last I heard that Latrobe had recorded 12 new cases. And she's had a bit of problem recording this interview.
We have 12 new cases in the Trobe Valley. We now have 16 total active cases across 3 households in Moe, Morwell and Traralgon. A number of these cases were unfortunately infectious in the community for a number of days, and we're aware of a household gathering that occurred over the weekend, so we have concerns that these case numbers will grow. Please, if you're in any of these areas in the Latrobe Valley, Moe, Morwell, Traralgon, keep an eye on our website. We are posting all the regional exposure sites on our website, and be on high alert for symptoms. At this stage, we are looking at increasing testing capacity in those areas, and we ask if you're experiencing symptoms or have been contacted as a close contact that you do go and get tested. And we ask for those people who aren't experiencing symptoms or haven't been contacted, please hold off as we increase capacity. A rapid response testing unit has been deployed to the Traralgon Basketball Stadium, and more pop-up testing sites will be emerging in the coming days. This is in addition to existing testing sites at Australian Clinical Labs on Grey Street, Traralgon, the Latrobe Respiratory Clinic on Princess Drive, Morwell, and the Moe Senior Citizens Centre on Langford Street.
And a message has just come across from the Premier's office that an update will be provided at 10 o'clock this morning. And that update we will broadcast live from we'll restream their stream. So, you know, the request has come to get it out to as many people. So, yes, we will do the right thing. We will be restreaming Premier's live update at 10 a.m. today. So the real estate section might have to be shifted a little bit, but I'm pretty sure we can do that in community interest. This update would probably be more important. Right now, moving on with the state-by-state update, let's go to ICT and see what's happening there.
13 new cases overnight, 11 of them linked and 2 remaining under investigation. Only one of today's cases was in quarantine during their entire infectious period. 7 spent part of their infectious period in the community, and the rest are still under investigation. 8 are currently hospitalised, and 3 are in intensive care, all 3 requiring ventilation. Another very strong day of testing yesterday, 3,476 tests conducted. Again, a reminder that the quicker you come forward for testing if you have any symptoms, the less likely that you will be infectious in the community and the less likely that you will then infect other people, including household close contacts and people you may be at work with because you are at work for essential reasons. Now, yesterday I outlined the pathway forward for the ACT. We've indicated throughout the lockdown that our pathway out would be gradual. This is a balancing act that every Australian jurisdiction will face, but it's one that the ACT, New South Wales and Victoria are facing now. We continue to work with the New South Wales Government and the Victorian Government on interstate travel requirements. I know this issue has come up a lot in the last 24 hours. Now, these states, New South Wales and Victoria, are likely to allow travel earlier than the other states and territories that are currently COVID-free. As the ACT remains an identified COVID-19 hotspot by the Commonwealth Government and by all other states and territories, there are strict requirements for you if you travel outside of the ACT. And once you cross the border out of the ACT, you have to adhere to the rules and restrictions of the jurisdiction that you are travelling to. Now, our standing arrangements with ACT New South Wales border communities remain in place that allows those residents to travel to the ACT. So
the border control there remains in place with 13 new cases recorded and, of course, a declared red hotspot. Well, right now, move on to Northern Territory and let's get an update of what's happening there.
14-year-old Jack Dyke is one of many Territory kids in line to receive their second COVID-19 Pfizer vaccine.
It feels amazing, just the fact that I can say that I've been able to take part in such a historic event.
The Territory was the first jurisdiction in the country to make the vaccine accessible to children, and already more than a quarter of Territory kids have at least one dose.
26% of Territory kids aged 12 to 15 have had at least one dose of the vaccine, and around 4% are fully vaccinated.
It's hoped by November, 80% of NT's adult population will be vaccinated.
So as a total, 74% of Territorians have received at least one dose and 59% of Territorians are fully vaccinated.
Despite a ramp up in the remote vaccination program, the numbers show little progress has been made. There is still a lag in people getting vaccinated in remote communities, even with targeted efforts. The NT government is now considering alternative measures.
If we do come to a situation where we've got large areas that have achieved over 80–90% of vaccination, but we've got some communities that are nowhere near that, we will have to put in place measures to protect those communities whilst allowing the rest of us to open up.
All lining up to secure protection and a free pass back to somewhat of a normal life.
Back to somewhat of a normal life, and this is what everyone's aiming for and trying to do, and it is wonderful to see the youngsters coming forward and, you know, gladly getting vaccinated, while there are people out there in the community who are opposing and protesting against it. Well, right now, let's go to South Australia, but the paramedics are saying that they are under a lot of pressure.
Hi, my name's Ash. I just got home from a 13-hour night shift working out of McLaren Vale. The whole shift, we didn't get a break, as many of my other colleagues also didn't last night. At the start of the shift, there were 17 uncovered emergencies just in the southern region alone, and that number fluctuated throughout the whole night. There was always an uncovered emergency in the community somewhere. Ramping was horrendous. The worst time that I'm aware of on the ramp was more than 5 hours. Flinders had part of their ED closed, purely just due to lack of staff. When is enough enough? When you need an ambulance, will we be stuck on the ramp?
Glenelg uncovered. Priority 2 Falls, Morpher Vale uncovered. Priority 2 Collapse. Seaford uncovered. Priority 2 Psychiatric Seaford Meadows uncovered. Priority 2 Falls Tusmore uncovered. Priority 2 Convulsions Cumberland Park uncovered. Priority 2 MVA Norwood uncovered. Priority 2 Collapse Millswood uncovered. And last of all, Priority 2
So there you go, that's that report there coming in from South Australia, and the paramedics there are under a lot of pressure with those uncovered cases that's happening there. Well, of course, talking about cases, the Anti-Corruption Board there in Parliament limits that as well.
Anti-corruption boss Anne Vanstone holds a number of positions. Now it's one fewer. In the moments after a bill passed Parliament to strip away some of her ICAC powers, she quit as SA's Judicial Conduct Commissioner, an independent role to handle complaints about judges and magistrates. Their law changes the Premier isn't keen to discuss.
I've had a few questions. Why did you allow government time to discuss the ICAC legislation?
Oh, we've been through that last week. Goodness gracious. I've already done a press conference on that.
Stephen Marshall has not done a press conference since the reforms to the anti-corruption watchdog breezed unopposed through the upper and lower house in less than a day. It was left to his deputy, the state's chief lawmaker, to field questions.
Everybody in this debate has had different views. We've considered them all and we have identified significant areas which are in agreement, including the focus on corruption.
A focus which is narrowed and hands over maladministration and misconduct probes to the Ombudsman.
My office has met with the Commissioner this morning to progress the immediate interim arrangements, including, of course, the continuation of existing inquiries.
Well, look, there was an extraordinary degree of scrutiny placed on the bill. The Honourable Kyan Ma, the Shadow Attorney General, was absolutely central to the delivering of 40 amendments to that piece of legislation before its passage.
A former Director of Public Prosecutions, now political candidate, says the changes should go to a referendum at next year's election.
When everybody thinks the same, as we have seen here, someone is not thinking.
An ICAC Commissioner now with more time to think, with less on her plate. Rory Mc...
Well, that's right, with less on her plate and more time to think. Well, right now it's time to go to our daily India report, but just before that, our newsroom there says just come on with the message that don't forget that 10 a.m. Premier, yes, I've got that message, thank you, that the Premier would be coming live at 10 a.m. through this channel. Of course, you know, there are many other channels that she will be on, but we would be rebroadcasting her message. It is very important to get that update of what's happening, of course, with that looming lockdown on our head, just to, you know, find out what's happening. But right now, let's welcome Ankita.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, India creates another single-day COVID-19 vaccination record. India crossed the milestone of over 10 million vaccination for the fifth time since the nationwide COVID-19 vaccination drive began on 16th January 2021. On September 17th, India had administered over 25 million jabs in a single day, creating a world record for the highest single-day vaccination achieved globally so far. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party had on Modi's 71st birthday on September 17th made history by administering a record COVID-19 vaccine doses. The vaccination is the only and most effective tool to protect the most vulnerable population groups in the country from COVID-19. A pan-India farmers' strike has paralyzed some states like Punjab but had limited impact elsewhere. Farmer groups in Punjab that have led the struggle against the new farm laws of 2020 have once again brought the state to a near standstill. The latest Bharat Bandh has paralyzed rail and road traffic. Also, business establishments were shut in all towns hit by the Bandh. While the impact was less severe in Haryana, the western part of Uttar Pradesh saw some toll plazas being blocked and trains cancelled due to protests on tracks. The Bandh failed to have a big impact on the rest of the country, except in opposition-ruled states of Punjab, West Bengal and some places in Kerala. This Bharat Bandh simply marks a year of the ongoing farmers' agitation in Punjab and 10 months on the borders of Delhi. The Sanyukt Kisan Morcha said there were more than 500 locations where people gathered to express their support to the Bandh in Punjab alone. Non-farmer associations and several opposition political parties too extended their support. In Punjab's Majha region districts of Amritsar, Tarn Taran, Gurdaspur and Pathankot, farmers took to streets and laid barricades, parked tractor trailers and other vehicles to block roads. There was no untoward incident. In Haryana, the Bandh passed peacefully. The strikers claimed the Bandh was successful. A senior government official claimed that there was no impact of Bandh in 7 districts, while in the rest of 17, it had a partial impact only. India accelerates talks with Taiwan on the chip plant and trade deal. India and Taiwan are in talks on an agreement that could bring chip manufacturing to South Asia, along with tariff reductions on components for producing semiconductors by the end of 2021. This may spark fresh tensions with China. Officials in New Delhi and Taipei have met in recent weeks to discuss a deal that would bring a chip plant worth an estimated $7.5 billion to India to supply for everything from 5G devices to electric cars. India is currently studying possible locations with adequate land, water and manpower. Indian government could provide support worth 50% of capital expenditure from 2023 as well as tax breaks and other incentives. Officials in Taipei wanted quick progress on a bilateral investment agreement that would include tariff reductions on dozens of products used to make semiconductors, a precursor to broader trade deal also under consideration. The trade talks are significant at a time when democracies across the world are boosting economic and military links to stand up against an increasingly assertive China. While Taiwan has long sought a trade deal with India, officials in New Delhi had been hesitant as China claims the island democracy as its territory. The talks have accelerated in recent weeks as US President Joe Biden seeks to shore up supplies of chips, strengthen supply chains among democracies and improve military capabilities in the region. India successfully tests new version of Akash missile. India successfully test-fired a new version of the Akash missile on September 27th from the integrated test range at Odisha's Chandipur. The new missile named Akash Prime intercepted and destroyed an unmanned aerial target that mimicked an enemy aircraft during its maiden flight test. In comparison to the existing Akash system, Akash Prime is equipped with an indigenous active radio frequency seeker for improved accuracy. Other improvements also ensure more reliable performance under low temperature environments at higher altitudes. A modified ground system of the existing Akash weapon system has been used for the current flight test. The range stations of ITR comprising radars, electro-optical tracking system and telemetry stations monitored the missile trajectory and flight parameters. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh congratulated the department DRDO, Indian Army, Indian Air Force, Defence Public Sector Undertaking and industry for the successful trials of Akash Prime missile. India and US have strengthened health collaboration in advanced scientific discovery and management of global health threats. India's Minister of State for Health, Dr. Bharti Praveen Pawar, has highlighted the mutual solidarity and relentless support between India and the US during the COVID-19 pandemic. She was speaking at the inaugural session of the 4th Indo-US Health Dialogue. The 2-day dialogue will be leveraged as a platform to deliberate upon multiple ongoing collaborations in the health sector between the two countries. The issues planned for deliberations in this round also encompass areas of concern pertaining to strengthening of epidemiological research and surveillance, vaccine development, One Health, zoonotic and vector-borne diseases, health systems and health policies, etc. She commended enhanced bilateral collaboration in research and development, especially with respect to pharmaceuticals, therapeutics and vaccine development, which could be seen in Indian vaccine companies collaborating with US-based agencies to develop the COVID-19 vaccine. The minister said an MOU was signed in 2020 on mental health. Another MOU between the two countries in the health sector has been finalized. with major areas of cooperation covering issues like health, safety and security, communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases, health systems and health policy. Cyclone Gulab leaves a trail of destruction in India's eastern coastal region. Cyclone Gulab, which made landfall on September 26th evening at Kalingapatnam, left a trail of destruction in the north coastal districts of the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. It threw normal life out of gear. A woman was killed and crops in 13,413 hectares were damaged. A large number of low-lying habitations in various cities and towns were flooded, with 253 mandals recording more than 10 centimeters of rainfall, even as rains continue to lash the state. 32 locations in Visakhapatnam and Vizianagaram districts recorded more than 25 centimeters of rainfall. Visakhapatnam airport was marooned. Officials said Vajrapukothuru and Santhabomli mandals bore the brunt of the cyclone. Rains also pounded Telangana, with Bachodu in Khammam district recording 15 centimeters, followed by Vaira with 14 centimeters by afternoon. Several parts of Hyderabad also witnessed heavy rains throughout the day. The neighbouring state of Odisha suffered little damage, with widespread rain reported from southern districts. Electricity and communication networks were damaged, and uprooted trees brought traffic to a halt on many roads in North Andhra, leaving several villages cut off. Chief Minister Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy announced an ex gratia relief of 500,000 rupees each to the kin of those killed, and instructed senior officials to personally monitor the relief operations in the north coastal districts. The makers of the comedy film Hausla Rakh, starring Diljit Dosanjh and Shehnaz Gill, have released the trailer of the film. Rising Bollywood singer star Diljit Dosanjh has shared the official trailer for his upcoming film titled Hausla Rakh. The film also stars Shehnaz Gill, Sonam Bajwa and Shaina Grewal in the lead roles.
तू बचपन तो इदा दा या तेरे च कोई नुक्सा?
I'm born cute. हुण तक किरपाना निकल जाणगियां, एही आऊगी घरे.
Diljit and Shehnaz fall into a relationship from which they have a baby boy. Diljit takes care of the baby and a series of funny misadventures take place.
Bye daddy.
Daddy daddy कह के तू डैडी गवा लेना किस दिन. तैनू किन्नी यार क्या बाहर वीरा कहना घरे डैडी कहना. ओ चक्की फिरे नौर जित तार दी बिलो मैनू लगेड़ा. हाय ओए मैनू लगदा गल इत्थे बन जानी है.
Then Diljit meets Sonam Bajwa and tries to flirt with her. When all seems well, Shehnaz re-enters his life. The trailer for the movie is a total laugh riot, with Diljit and Shehnaz sharing commendable chemistry and showcasting great comic timing.
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਫੜਨਾ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ.
ਸਾਂਭ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਾ ਪੁੱਤ, ਤੂੰ ਹੌਸਲਾ ਰੱਖ.
ਹੌਸਲਾ ਤਾਂ ਪੁੱਤ ਹੁਣ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਹੀ ਪੈਣਾ.
ਬੇ ਚੈਂਕੀ ਇਹ ਕੀ ਚੱਕੀ ਫਿਰਦਾ ਹੈ?
ਸਹੁਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਹੌਸਲਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ.
ਨਾ ਕੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਹੈ?
ਹੌਸਲਾ.
Sonam Bajwa looks stunning. The movie will have a worldwide release in theatres on 15th October. Hausla Rakh is directed by Amarjeet Singh Saro and written by Rakesh Dhawan.
ਬਹੁਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਟਰਾਈ ਮਸਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਦਾਲ. ਹੁਣ ਥੋੜੇ ਪਾਸਤੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਪਰੌਂਠੇ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ. ਇਮੇਜਿਨ ਕਰ ਲਜ਼ਾਨੀਆ ਦੀ ਤਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੂਲੀਆਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਪਰੌਂਠੇ. Oh come on bro, not you man. Now you're gonna get gory mummy.
That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And thank you very much, Ankita, for that update. And of course, don't forget that at 10 a.m. we'll bring to you a live update of the situation here in Queensland. And right after that, we will have the real estate update with Usachendra, but that will be right after we get that update from the Premier, because that happens to be at 10. The real estate will be right after that update from the Premier. So our apologies for that slight change in the timing, but I think that is very, very important that we do that. It is very important that we get the updates out. Right now, let's take a look at some of the functions and events taking place. Gentlemen, and don't forget that we'll be back here at 10 a.m. when the Premier will be joining us with the live update of the situation here in Queensland. Until then, it's goodbye from me. Remain safe.